if you looked at the data or the statistics behind who's involved in agricultural industries now, and we're seeing more and more women involved in the industry, at those higher end level roles, leadership type roles, there's still quite a significant gap between women at the table versus men at the table.
Welcome to Boots Off, Log On, a podcast where we talk all things farm business. A show about the business of farming, bringing you insights and wisdom from the leaders in farm business, helping you minimise risk and maximise return on all your hard work. I'm David, and I'll be your host for the show. Well, welcome to the podcast, Simone, and welcome to Boots Off and Log On.
Thanks for having me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be asked to come onto this podcast and have an episode on myself and all the crazy things I do up here in the Territory.
I know it's all about you today. So you're a farmer and also a regional director at NT Farmers. So you're a pretty busy person. So tell me all about your farm. Now, if you're from down south, it sounds like a huge farm, but I think what you want to tell us is about your farm outside of Katherine here.
Yeah, so my family and I live on 1,200 acres just on the north side of Katherine, on two river corridors, the Edith and the Ferguson River. So we're really fortunate to have, I guess you could say, water views out the front of our property and really capture in that beautiful outback experience, which is the Northern Territory. Currently, it's a property that is just running a small head of Brahmins, and it's basically like a breeding block for us. I have lots of big dreams and aspirations for the property, whether it be through agritourism because of its position along river corridors, and also just its capacity to be able to produce a vast variety of agricultural production.
Yeah, it sounds almost idealistic. I can almost picture it. It sounds like I think I read a while ago when I read Kings and Grass Castles and the Durack's crossing all those rivers going from Queensland across to the Kimberley, and about all these rivers. And although theirs is a bit tougher, yours sounds very idealistic, seeing at the crossing of two beautiful rivers up there.
Yes, it is a special place, and we're very fortunate at certain times of the year where we are the only ones really that can access parts of that river. So it's really, really special for us. You know, we are very lucky to have it.
Yeah, so I like it. I think what you're saying when we're offline, is 1,200 acres sounds like a lot to some people, but in the Northern Territory context, it's probably a paddock, I'd imagine. Is that, or is that incorrect around Katherine?
I wouldn't even say it's a paddock. It's probably it's probably the home paddock, maybe. The home paddock maybe at a pinch, but even then, it's very tiny compared to
the one around the yards.
Yeah, the yard. It's the yards. So it's a place where we can feel and immerse ourselves into the experience of what it might be like to live out in one of these larger, amazing cattle stations up here in the north, and still have the ability to not be too remotely isolated.
Yeah, it sounds. I think size is a context when you get to the north, isn't it? I was up earlier this year. I was up at Warringah Station, and we were at the old shearing shed that had burnt down, which must have been stunning in its day. And Lex, the manager there, said, "I don't know why they built the shed so close to the boundary." And I go, "Oh, where's the boundary?" He goes, 20 kilometres that way.
Well, that's it. That's it, and really, I guess that's it. It's when you live up in the Northern Territory or live up in these remote areas, distances between A and B become insignificant, relative to a trip that a person in a more urban area might take. I live 50 kilometres out of town. I travel into town every day. It's not something I think about. It's the best part of the day, the driving out home and looking towards the west and into the sunset, and it's one of the favourite times of my day to just look at the beautiful landscape that we're lucky enough to be living in amongst.
Yeah, it is pretty stunning up there. So tell us all about the regional director role. I know you're quite heavily involved in the veg industry, so can you just give us all an idea of what does a regional and director at NT Farmers involve?
Sure. I started with NT Farmers in 2019, late 2019, and I've been based in Katherine since moving up here in 2011. Our CEO Paul Burke approached me and asked if I would be interested in coming on board with the team and really sort of, in essence, helping to create a greater reach within our association, particularly in that regional focus. So I guess when I first started with NT Farmers, I was overseeing a couple of different projects within biosecurity and in the vegetable industry. But what really happened out of me being based in Katherine was that I needed to be across all of the different conversations and concerns and industries that do make up the plant-based industries, but also agricultural industries. So I was wearing many, many hats. And so often it was a case of when I was introducing myself or others were introducing me with regard to my role, it became quite evident that I was involved in all of the different projects that NT Farmers was overseeing, supporting or driving. And so it just made sense in a succession plan model that the organisation has undergone in the last 18 months to 2 years to actually look at the role that I do, in essence, play and what that looks like in our organisation. And so hence the evolution of Director of Regions and Projects.
Yeah, so because before, I think if I scour the internet for you, you've had many titles. So part of OSVEG. And so your relation with veg. So I think this is one of the things that people don't really, I suppose, when I last did my podcast with Paul, the size of the hort industry in Northern Australia. So when most people think of Northern Australia, well, certainly I do, and I probably can't speak for everyone, but apart from the Ord River, I'm really thinking like cattle and, you know, that whole Durack view of the world up there, you know, stations, etc.
Of course.
So, but the veg industry is quite a big industry in the northern Australia in particular, but bigger in around Katherine than I thought it would be. So can you explain a bit more about that plant-based industry in the north?
So our vegetable industry is very young in comparison to other jurisdictions in Australia. And we are in the lucky position of being able to tap into a market capture that's very much off-season from the rest of Australia. So when the southern states are in their winter months, there's certain vegetables and production or varieties that aren't able to be produced down there but can be produced up here. So we sort of fit a nice little niche. So we enable the Australian market to be able to continue supply chains in times of the year when it's a little bit more challenging down in the southern regions. We are young in our capacity and we are still learning and we are still growing and evolving. It is really quite exciting to be involved in an industry that is, whilst in its formation, it's you know, there's a real grounded approach from the southern states, but what we're doing up here relative to that is fairly new and frontier in its essence. So the vegetable industry has a long way to go and we have lots of growths to make and it is getting stronger. And certainly one of the big proponents of our vegetable industry up here in the Northern Territory is our non-English speaking growers. Our Vietnamese growers and our Cambodian growers are significant to that role that is played up here in the north.
Are you getting people investing? So there's a lot of these families and you know, right across Australia, there's been a lot of families who've immigrated to Australia over the last long time, maybe 100 years. But, you know, we've had a whole lot of European families now, a whole lot of people from Vietnam and Cambodia, etc. Are those families, they've got a lot of experience in horticulture. Are they really bringing that experience from the south to the north? Is that how it's working, or are we getting a whole lot of new people starting in the north?
Well, we've got two different layers. I think we've certainly got the more traditional family-owned, operated properties, but we also have a number of corporate-style operated entities up here as well. What we're probably seeing is a few more of the corporate style enterprises popping up in the north, and obviously their methods or their farming enterprises are run similar but probably different to your family style models. Sorry. So it's about finding a balance between the two, and obviously our role within NT Farm is just to help support both, the corporate positions as much as the family farm operated owners as well. So it's definitely made some great progressions and developments over the last few years in particular. And I think ideally through connectivity with, knowledge awareness and knowledge transfer has become a lot more efficient than what it was even a few years ago. We've also got now some of those market-style growers that we have in the Darwin rural area. Their children are now becoming involved in the farm, and so we're sort of in that rollover of succession happening. So there's some exciting changes on the horizon for the industry as a whole. Yeah.
That's really great. When I was talking to Paul, I think I did my intro to him, I was saying he's like Jon Snow. He's kind of tell everyone to go north. The opportunities up there. Hey, but I want to come back to you. So you're a New South Wales girl, aren't you? And
yes.
So did you grow up in Veg, or so how does a girl from New South Wales end up in Katherine? So I'd love to know, I think we'd all love to know a little bit more about that journey, because I know you obviously sound like you've actually put roots down there. So how was the journey from New South Wales to Katherine?
Yeah, so I am a blues shirt wearer. Not that I would say that I am completely 100% blues, because both of our boys were born in Queensland, so I'm a bit of I sit on the fence as far as that goes.
So who do they barrack for then?
Well, Queensland, of course. So I was born in rural New South Wales and grew up most of my life down in the Riverina area. My parents are originally from the Albury region, and my father's parents own a property outside of Albury in a little place called Howlong. So from the moment I could talk and walk, I would spend a lot of time out on rural properties, and I guess I just fell in love with agriculture from a very, very young age. I've been passionate as long as I can remember about the land and its environment around it. So my mum's mum, my grandmother, she was probably a really big, strong force behind why I chose to take a career in agriculture. She would take me to these beautiful properties outside of Albury every holidays that I had, every school holidays, and I just sort of was allowed to sort of become the station manager of these properties, if you like, in my own little, universe at the time. And I just fell in love with agriculture right from the go-get. So I also had an amazing ag teacher at high school in Griffith, where I spent many years of my high school life at, and she was a massive inspiration to me forging my pathway even further in agriculture, because at the time it was very, very uncommon to have a female teacher who had studied agriculture and was teaching agriculture in an education capacity. So that was what sealed the deal for me, essentially.
Yeah, so it's a bit. So you had that role model, you had that female role model, not only just a female role model at school, but an agricultural female role model, which that you and your peers are becoming yourselves now. But you're also, that passion you bring is like you're one of the people who wasn't born to, say, agriculture. You weren't born into it as such, like growing up on a farm, but you had a passion for it outside. So you went to Charles Sturt, is that right? You went and studied ag science degree from memory, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So, I wasn't born just on a farm. My grandparents had farms, or my grandmother had connection to farmers. So every opportunity I could get, I was always outside, riding horses, running around, digging up dirt, whatever it could be, chasing sheep, chasing cattle, whatever it was. So then I went off to Charles Sturt Uni at Wagga And at the time, when I was going through there, which was only, let's just say it was just last week, it was,
Just the other day.
Yeah, just the other day. I was one of 5 females in a class of around 85. So back when I did the study and was at uni and involved in in the industry, it wasn't really where a lot of women were going. I know now that it's almost the reverse. It's the opposite now. Now we see a lot more women studying agricultural degrees and agricultural science. But at the time, so it was really an opportunity for me to grow as a person, obviously, and to really embed that this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about, and I will make a career for myself in agriculture.
Yeah. So let's leap onto that a bit. So you have become a role model in your own right now. So you were only one of 8 in your class at Charles Sturt, but now, there's been you and a few others who've gone before you, who've sort of blazed this path for this concept of a strong career path for women within agriculture. So now I just want to, I know you don't want to blow your own trumpet, but I'll blow it for you. So this year you have really been nominated for 2 things. One, you are the finalist for the AgriFutures Rural Woman of the Award finalists. Is that correct? So have I said it right?
Yes, you have. In essence, the 2022 NT AgriFutures Rural Women's Award finalist. It's a bit of a mouthful.
It is a big mouthful, isn't it? I think they need to make that an acronym because we certainly don't have enough acronyms in agriculture already. And now this is for connecting the farm sector to support sustainable diversification for development of opportunity in the north. So again, it's what you were just talking about. So can you explain about this development of opportunity in the north, or this sustainable diversification? So can you just talk about that vision of yours within the framework that you operate in?
Well, I'm obviously extremely passionate about the north. And so I see that we have an opportunity here to demonstrate from all the learnings we've had thus far in agriculture how we could actually really find that, balance between the beautiful natural environments we see up here in the north, but also how we can actually tap into some of the unique resources that we have. Up here there is land, there is water, and there is the beautiful sunshine that comes down from the skies every day. And we have these unique dedicated seasons up here as well. So, however, because we are really I want to use the word untapped, essentially, in our development, but that can come across as a really negative connotation there. It's more about, I guess, the project that I captured it in the title of Unearthing Resilient Landscapes. So the idea is that we need to, it's exciting that we can have development opportunities, but we need to be mindful about the sensitivities of the landscape around us. And I guess what I was trying to capture is to make sure that we think we're considerate of everything that we've got on the table, and how can we find a balance between that?
A lot of what we've gone from in the past, I suppose let's just say globally, not just within Australia, we haven't always been sensitive to the landscape we develop, have we?
No, that's right. And that does create some concerns in communities. And they are concerned up here around what that might look in the future should agricultural developments, in particular, in my instance, take off. Mm-hmm. So what I'm proposing, or what's being proposed through this concept where I was a finalist for, was that if we capture data that can tell us a story about the landscape and how that landscape, in its uniqueness ultimately works, then we can actually, agricultural developments can use that as much as other industries can use it to help create a balance within what we're proposing, what we want to do. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the LiDAR capture that is happening in the next month or so, which is very exciting, is going to look at scale what that landscape form and function has in the territory. Because we talked about, the size of my property relative to the average size of properties in the Northern Territory. So I could stand in the corner of one paddock, but I couldn't really tell you without walking through the paddock what's at the other side because of the sheer scale and size of that paddock. We can use technology to help us to map what that might look like and find, almost find the nuances in the landscape that you and I may not be able to see if we're standing on the landscape, just standing, having a chat and having a beer, watching the sunset.
Yeah, your CEO and Paul mentioned to me when I interviewed him before that there's a vast majority of the North, or especially the Northern Territory, that's is held by the Indigenous cultures still, and it's that that 60 odd thousand years of understanding of landscape. Do they play a role in this? I don't know if we call it a project or this initiative around the sensitive development of the landscape, because they do have that I don't know if institutional knowledge, but a generational knowledge of that landscape.
Absolutely, and it's also an opportunity for them to be able to identify those areas as well. So we can actually all, I guess it will allow us all to work together more effectively and more efficiently. So I know myself, out the front of my property here, there's a sacred site on the Ferguson River corridor. And, it's good to know where these different sensitive sites are. And I think by having this particular data that we're looking to capture, it will enable us to be able to see where we need to be considerate of some of the other sensitivities that we have up here in the Northern Territory.
It's almost this ability, because like you said, the North is, there's so much opportunity left in the North. You feel like the South is, although we're young in the context of global agriculture, we're old in the context of Australian agriculture down in the southern parts of Australia. But the North is almost young in a way, although it's ancient in cattle, it's quite young in I suppose not vegetable, just plant-based agriculture. So you have an opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the South almost. It's a unique opportunity, isn't it?
Correct. That's it, and that's the idea. It's to make sure that if we do choose to open up other areas of land that are suitable, that are identified as being suitable for agricultural production, it's to make sure that if we do open up those parts of land, that we're aware of some of the sensitivities that are within that area. And this high-resolution data can actually identify that for us, because there are some areas of the Northern Territory, or there's many, many areas of the Northern Territory, where they are not necessarily easily accessed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to just be conscious around how we approach our developments. I'm very, I've got a beautiful river corridor. I do not want to see my river corridor or my property degraded in any way, shape or form. So it's about, let's be smart about it, use the technology that's out there that can actually enable us to appreciate and identify the areas that we should be really avoiding, or even looking at them from a land care perspective. How can we actually make sure that they stay that pristine environment that they are, and balance that with what agriculture is probably looking to try and develop up here?
I really want to go. You've actually convinced me to go, and I think the next trip has to be to Catherine. I think Michael and Louise came back wanting to stay up there.
Well, I always make a point of saying that Catherine is the epicentre of the North. I think I've even told some fairly significant dignitaries every time they've cruised through town. I said, if you really want to understand what the North is all about, then you need to spend, a good week or two in Catherine, so that I can take you around and give you a little bit of perspective on what it's all about. So
what do you think friends in Darwin think about that?
Well, they all acknowledge that Simone thinks that Catherine is the epicentre. And, look, we all in essence love where we live. Catherine, for myself, is is home, and I'm very passionate about seeing it be the amazing place and recognition for the amazing place that it is.
That's great. Now, as a result, I don't know if it's as a result or what leads to another. Part of this Rural Women's Award finals, but you've also been selected for the National Farm Federation. So you're one of only 12 women in Australia who've been selected for the 2022 Diversity and Agricultural Program. Now, I'm really interested in this because you were just talking before about the amount of women that are now choosing to study and choose a career in agriculture and agribusiness generally. So can you tell us all about this program and what it involves, and how did you get? I know there was hundreds of applicants and you're one of 12 chosen. So tell me about this Diversity and Agricultural Program and the aims of it.
I know I'm extremely humbled by the opportunity, and I do know that I'm only one of 2 women in the Northern Territory to have completed this particular program that has been running now for 5 years. It's an amazing initiative. What really it's about bringing together like-minded women who are extremely passionate about the industry, and are also just to bring them together so that they understand and appreciate that they've gotten to where they've gotten because they've done the hard yards, to acknowledge that. And then you mentioned when we first started this podcast, it's all about you at the minute. So, and that's basically what this program is identifying. It's giving women an opportunity to make it all about themselves and to be in a safe environment where you can feel comfortable about almost that selfish nature of being it's about you and what you've achieved and what you can still achieve in the future. So we've been through a series of different workshops and online sessions and face-to-face sessions. We aligned with a mentor, so we were matched up with a mentor from the beginning of the program. My amazing mentor lives down in Yass, or near Yass in New South Wales, just outside of Canberra, and she has the most amazing career, almost to the point, I know after the couple of days that I was in Canberra earlier in the year for our first face-to-face session, I felt like a little bit, of an imposter in the room, and I was a bit sort of blown away by the sheer calibre of the women that were not only in the program with me, but the mentors that we were assigned with. And I guess it's about identifying for myself, some goals that I'd like to see myself and how I actually see myself as a leader. What are some of my strong attributes as a leader, and what are some of the attributes that I feel that I still need to work on? And I guess it just gives you a voice. It's given me a voice. It's improved my confidence. And I know that I have amazing tribe around me who support what I do and are really sort of encouraging me to continuing this pathway forward towards a leadership role in Northern Australia.
So the voice of women in agriculture has been getting louder and louder for really the past decade. And I think off air I was talking to you, whenever I get asked to speak at usually a business-related forum within agriculture, it tends to be organised by usually a women's business group within ag. So what do you think this increasingly confident voice for women in agriculture is bringing to ag that was maybe missing or needed a bit more attention or some light shined on it? What is the perspective that this? It's obviously for a benefit, but did you talk amongst each other the difference that you are bringing by encouraging and trying to turbocharge this diversity?
Yeah, I guess it's about understanding and appreciating and acknowledging that women do have value to add to any industry, and often. Even now, Fiona Simpson herself, she's amazing. I sort of hold her in very high regard, and I've always admired her even prior to being accepted into the program. Just phenomenal for what she has done to project the voice of females or women into the industry. But we've still got a long way to go in that whilst if you looked at the data or the statistics behind who's involved in agricultural industries now, and it's starting to see that we're seeing more and more women involved in the industry at those higher end level roles, leadership type roles. There's still quite a significant gap between women at the table versus men at the table.
And is this reflected on the ground as well, do you think? So if I walk into a family farm, a family or an agribusiness, do you see that? Do you think it's trickling up to the top, or do you think are we seeing changes at those formation parts of those careers?
Yeah, so I think if we go the grassroots end, we've now got scenarios, particularly even in the Northern Territory, where we have, like I said, almost that, if you want to say, a role reversal, or the balance is actually now more so we're seeing more women taking on some of the roles that perhaps had that manly label to them. Mm-hmm. And we're sort of just trying to find a balance, I think, about, what we can achieve relative to what we actually want to achieve. So we know women, we know we can do, we know we can get dirty, we know we can dig holes, we know we can fix fences, we know we can yard cattle, we know we can do all of these things. And I think it's, we need to appreciate the value that we can have regardless of whether it's seen as a leadership role or not. I think, we certainly can be seen as the super glue of juggling many roles and enabling us to have that voice has helped us to actually gain further confidence to be able to go out there and to sit in a room that predominantly has seen more male counterparts than female counterparts, and not be, sort of impacted by that or feeling, not feel intimidated. That's the word, not feel intimidated.
Not being intimidated. It's not intimidation. It's not that strong, but it's like the fact that you do have a voice and you can use it, and it's not a lesser voice. Is that?
That's right. Absolutely. And we have a lot of, we bring a different perspective.
Yeah. Can we explain that? Can we just drill down on that? Because I actually 100% agree with you. You do bring a different perspective to ag, because ag can be really blokey, and I'm saying that from a bloke's point of view. What is the perspective that having a stronger female presence and voice and ownership in agriculture brings to ag that may have been missing? Or
I think we just enable a different perspective on solutions, and everyone has a unique way of problem solving, and I think it just allows for that capacity to be able to demonstrate that one person making a decision of one particular mindset, perhaps you need to bring in some different flares there to actually really nut out and flesh out how that solution to that issue or that challenge might be best addressed. I think as a woman, it's really, we can kind of delve a lot deeper into the nuances of the issue or the concern or the conversation or the change maker. So I think it just helps us to balance it out, really, at the end of the day. And I'm not saying that all women should necessarily aspire to be a leader, because you can be as valuable in a role that is not, front and centre like mine essentially is. You still have a massive, powerful role to play no matter what you choose to do in any rural community in particular.
I think just standing up. I think I was doing a workshop earlier on this year, and I met one of our clients, and I was talking to her, and I made the false assumption that about her and a partner that, and this is our paradigm. So what am I? I'm 52, and I'd brought this assumption in that she had married into the farm, but in fact her husband had, and so she had taken over the family business, and she owned the farm, ran the farm, was the farmer, and had married a urban boy who'd married into the farming business. And I just go, wow, that, first of all, I made that assumption, but at the same time, that's so great. I was saying she is a leader in that room, just because she goes, why should guys take over the farm? Why can't, I'm just as good. So it was a big lesson for me, I suppose.
Yeah. And it's not, and it's no fault to yours, because that's just this cultural mindset that we've had ingrained in our society for a very, very long time. I think it takes all types to, well, there's a saying, and I can't think of it right now, but it takes all types to build a village, all types of people to build a village. And I guess if we take on that persona or that mindset of that, then we need to have that equitability in all different, everyone brings something unique to the table, everyone and anyone. So I'm very much about making sure that in my role with NT Farmers in particular, that what happens with decision making up at the top end of town, if you like, that the grassroots, I'm the conduit between those two, and that the grassroots certainly have a voice, and sometimes for a lot of the time the voice is coming through myself. So I take, it's a very responsible role to be responsible for making sure that their voices are heard, because they may not necessarily want to be the one at the front of the line or the front of the queue, but they do have very valuable voices to be heard.
So what is your message then? So there is hundreds or thousands of women in agriculture at various roles, both aspiring just to either just pursue a career or pursue a career in leadership or pursue a profession in farming. What is your advice to them about, because you've sort of blazed a path and with many of your peers. So what is your advice to these younger women who are just starting their agricultural journey, or might be like you, they might be thinking about choosing agriculture as a career?
My advice is to make sure that it's something that you really want to do. I don't believe there's ever been a day I've woken up and not been excited to get out and about and to do what I do. And it's because, in essence, it's my core value is making sure that, it's something I love. And so therefore it's not work, it's not a job. I do it because I'm just driven to do what I do. For young women who are thinking or considering or just started in the industry, you're doing a phenomenal job no matter what you do. And it is, it's something that, it's a really honourable endeavour that's benefiting all the communities that you are surrounding in. And I just say, if you're passionate about it, you've got to do it.
Brilliant. Is there any things that and you would have talked about this when you're doing your program, any self-limiting thoughts that they need to sort of don't have to think that there's that may hold them back. Is there any things like, oh, I can't do that or I shouldn't do that? Is there any of those self-limiting thoughts that they need to go, well, they need someone like you to go, no, just do it?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I do have that, myself still. And I think women are very much driven, that drives them even more. I know it drives me even more, in that if I'm challenged by something, I really take that on and I work on how I can get through that challenge to the other end. And you might get thrown things along the way, but it just actually, really sort of makes you dig your heels in even more. So make sure that, look, imposter syndrome is a big one for women, because we do often feel like, as I mentioned earlier, how did I actually find myself here? How did I find myself in a room with 12 other amazing women from around Australia, and all these other amazing women in positions that are so influential and so integral to what we are in Australia? And then I had to step back and reflect on that and think, well, I'm being recognised for my hard achievements or my hard work, essentially, and that's okay. Also, make sure that you give yourself some time out. We all have to, that work-life balance, you have to make sure you can maintain that. And I will say that I'm still learning how to do that, because sometimes my passion for the industry takes over everything else, which is probably why my bespoke property of many mixed enterprises hasn't really happened yet, and I'm just running a few cattle around, because I have, at the minute, I'm for everyone else in that regard, and I love that. And but have I got enough time in my life at the minute to be having a fully operational farm enterprise here on my 1,200 acres? No. So it all comes with, a balance. You have to learn how to balance it.
That's a great segue, because I always finish the podcast on this, because I'm really fascinated, because whenever we talk to people on ag, they're just like you. They're just all in, right? It just seems to be this, it's all in or all out. But everyone has lives they either have or want to have outside of their passion for agriculture, or like you, trying to change the world. So what do you do when you're not trying to revolutionise the world of agriculture in the Northern Territory?
I love to ride horses. So I have 2 amazing horses. So I occasionally try and pretend I know how to camp draft. Essentially what that means is I actually just really love being around animals and livestock. So the idea of having a weekend where I don't make any other excuses but sit on my ponies and be working around cattle and socialising with other people that have similar interests and is really quite exciting, and I love it. I don't do it as much as what I should do it, but I do prioritise it when I can. And obviously too, being on our property out here is really, for myself and my family, very much our little patch of the universe. And we kind of, after the busy weeks that I have, I tend to just come home and just close the gate and disappear until Monday.
Do you ever get to, I've got a picture of those rivers of yours. Do you ever get to sit down on those rivers with a fire and a beer and just watch the water run past?
Absolutely. Not as much as I should though, David. Not as much as I should. But we do, yes. We've got, I've got 2 boys, and it's hard to establish strong traditions when 2 boys and a husband. So one of the traditions we do have is Mother's Day. We go down to the corner of Edith Ferguson. I'm probably giving everything away now. Probably end up with lots of people down there next year. But we go down and we have our little Mother's Day brunch down there at the river, and it's so beautiful. So, yeah, we're very, very lucky that we have that there.
That sounds a bit flashier than my partner, who I bring her breakfast in bed. So that sounds very, I think she'd want to be up and sit on your river bend, I think.
Although she might be a bit nervous about crocodiles. So we do have to have Spotto going on as well. But,
yeah, just don't get eaten by a croc on Mother's Day.
Yeah, croc-wise.
Well, on that note, with not being eaten by a crocodile, Simone, thank you very much for joining us. I hope that yours is an inspirational story, and you do deserve to be where you are. And I hope your story really emboldens and inspires a lot of both women in agriculture of any age, but especially the young ones entering. And because we noticed how many young women are now enrolling into ag courses and ag universities, and are really starting to really make an impact. So thank you very much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity to endeavour to tell a little bit of my story, and I'm excited by what the future holds for agriculture in Northern Australia.
Yeah, you've made me want to make my next holiday in Catherine now. As always, if you'd like to know more about AgriMaster Farm Business Management Software and Services, you can find us at www.agrimaster.com.au, or you can find us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram. My aim with this podcast is to make it the most useful podcast you listen to, and to help every farm business thrive. So if you like this episode, please take the time to share it on social media, or even better, directly with at least one friend today. Plus, give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it really helps us reach more farm businesses like you. So together, we can make all farm businesses strong farm businesses. Thank you.